Hey, Oz, quick, run. They know Murder Shed Steve's in town. So now that Oz isn't here, guys. So how do you feel the episode 3, part 2 went, Chris?
Oh man, it's always a privilege for me to be able to meet with guys, especially that don't believe like I do. Talking with Oz was awesome. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate you for putting it together. I thought it went really well. I really do. Got a lot of solid points in and a lot of counterpoints, and I thought Oz asked some very real questions that are not uncommon.
I love to have the conversation. I love to learn, hear why people believe what they believe and how they arrived there. I still haven't met or heard a convincing argument or conversation yet. The only thing we're missing, I feel like I need to get up on the gate there and elbow drop Chris off the top rope.
That's long as we...
The best way to have a conversation with an atheist is to ask how we came to that position or why we're in that position, and then go from there.
If you could sit with one of the members of TART, besides the owner, creator, producer, director, who would it be?
I'd have to say Oz. It's funny because, like I said, I really did not like him when we started.
When you first met him?
Well, whenever I first saw his TikToks, right? And so I would really enjoy sitting down. I love the difference of opinion I have with him,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we could have a really good conversation.
Hey, it's Pastor Mike here with episode 3 of Atheist Pizza. I'm back in Rome, Georgia, with my boy, Chris Ullery. But I got a couple of extra guests today, and we're gonna meet them. Part 2.
Johnny's Deluxe.
Johnny's Deluxe, AKA...
That atheist pizza, dog.
Oh, shoot.
Hello.
Quiet in here,
Do you guys have a preference on where I place everything?
No.
No? Okay.
Whatever's best for you.
Margarita,
Yeah.
Deluxe.
Yeah.
Let me grab some more plate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You guys can call.
Huh?
Is she taller than you? Christian Pizza. Oh, God damn it. What do you getting, us? Well, anyway, let's get over to Chris, because Chris is actually a little bit bigger than you. Hold on. Chris is actually taller than you. Look at that.
I don't know about that.
No, actually, it's the way
I
the
think we're
camera.
very close.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hey,
I like to find out why people believe. What is it that convinces people that a belief or a story is true? What's the basis? What's the foundation? Is it justified? What's the reason? Beliefs, ideas, whether they're good or bad, should be questioned, and skepticism should be applied all the time.
how long were you a Christian for?
30 plus years.
And what type of denomination of Christianity did you adhere to?
The crazy ones, evangelical, speaking in tongues, slinging oil all over the place.
That's considered evangelical?
Yeah.
Okay. And you've been a non-believer for how long?
4 years now.
Okay. And you consider yourself to be atheist?
Agnostic atheist, if we're going to get to the technical terms.
That's like the technical terminology for it?
Nowadays it is, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to get some pizza. And
Atheist pizza.
Yeah, it lacks belief in anything that's considered healthy.
Right, and for the record, I'm an atheist that is not a vegetarian.
So you kill animals?
Absolutely, and I eat them.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And they're delicious.
They are. Some of them are more delicious than others, though. You got to admit that.
Absolutely, I'll eat all of the pork, so that covers all the religions.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a difficult thing to talk about because a lot of it, and I know people don't like this, but a lot of it is experience. You've had your own experiences, right, in the Christian faith, and that's not to discredit those whatsoever. It's just a matter of, to me, when I see a Christian, a believer, if it doesn't continue, or if it doesn't even show, for example, I think it was, I can't remember who it was, maybe Scott, that was talking about, if I see a Christian that immediately starts cussing in their,
It was Scott.
yeah, I think it was Scott. He was like, immediately they lose any credibility they have as a believer. And I agree with that. Now, doesn't mean that we're perfect, obviously, because we're not. There's a lot of things that we struggle with. We sin against God, consistently with. But it's a matter of, is there any growth with you and God at all? And the experiences that I'm talking about with you, the why, it's such a hard thing to answer because, man, there's things that you have lived that if I try to put into words, it's not going to come across the same. And somebody that doesn't believe is going to be like, that's just, what's the word? The legal word that I've heard you say quite often. It's for like an experience. Somebody else's anecdotal. I think,
Yeah.
right? So it's an anecdotal type of thing. So, but hopefully conversations like this, things might come up that normally might not, And so that's what it is for me.
So when I ask the why question, it's okay if it's not that easily explained, then why are you convinced?
Sure. I think it goes back for me, and I talked a little bit about this with Mike the first time we did this, but I'm just fully convinced. Like when I hear, man is evil, that's what I guess I'm known for on TikTok or whatever, because that's what I always talk about, right? Man is evil, God is good. I'm always talking about that. And I think people in general have this idea that man is pretty much good. And a lot of people look at it like God is the evil one. Because after all, read the Bible, look at all the things that happen, right? But what if there is more to the story than just meets the eye? For example, people love to talk about, well, why would God, we were just talking about it, right? Why would God command people to kill babies and rip the baby out of the womb and all these things? Here's the thing. A lot of people also say they want God to stop evil, right? So you have the Amalekites, for example. If you have the Amalekites who we know were wicked according to Scripture, and God says, go and stop these people, kill them, do whatever it had, men, women, and children. Now, the moral person looks at that as like they're innocent. But what are they going to become? If, for example, if you have a terrorist in some foreign land and they're being raised by, or the child is being raised by terrorists, chances are they're going to become terrorists, right? So equally, if God commands the death of men, women, and children to stop evil, and you simultaneously want him to do that, but then you say that's genocide somehow, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Well, no, I think part of that goes, though, Chris, is there's if we're talking about Old Testament stories, there's the hypocrisy of just a short few books before that. God lays out the 10 Commandments, and one of those being "Thou shalt not kill," but then He orders people to kill or to be killed.
Right.
So there are so many gaps there where it's like, well, how do you explain that away?
Mm-hmm.
Because some argue, well, the first 3 or 4 commandments aren't even commandments about our behavior; it's about how we should treat this God or view this God. But then when we get down to actual moral actions, "Thou shalt not kill," then a few stories. Well, there's the flood before that, but then even after that, we literally, children and unborn babies, that even if you throw free will in the conversation, they didn't even have free will. They didn't even get to choose whether they were going to do good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
But this God that's supposed to be the standard holder and is creating these laws is the same one handing out these commandments to go do exactly what He said not to do. So that's where the moral conflict comes in. And if He is the moral standard, how?
That's a really good point. And I think one thing we have to remember is this life, according to Scripture, this isn't the end. This is a temporary stop in eternity. And so if we really are supposed to be living for eternity, regardless of what happens here, all of it matters, don't get me wrong. But this is the in-between eternity. So if I'm living for heaven or hell, really, living to go to heaven or living to go to hell, that's what really matters. So if God says, for example, Abraham, right? He commanded him to go and kill his only son, which was a precursor to what he would do. But God stopped His hand. He didn't stop His own whenever He sacrificed His son so that we could come to Him, right?
I'm glad that you brought that story up.
Okay.
That's my favorite story.
Okay. I
So-
saw your face.
So we're both fathers. So my first question would be, Do you have kids? Okay. So
Yeah, Logan, jump into this.
yeah. So I have 4 of my own, and I have 2 stepchildren. I don't care what the God is, Bible God, whatever God. If a God, a person, whatever, asks me, hey, to demonstrate your love and your loyalty to me, I want you to take whatever child up on this hill or mountain, whatever, and I want you to kill them. But forget that we know the ending of the story yet. Just that. Would you do it?
That's a great question. I don't know if I could, to be honest, because I love my kids.
Do you think that that's morally acceptable for a God or anyone to ask a parent to murder or kill the child?
Well, again, I think we have to go to this isn't the be all end all. So if I'm a believer and I believe that God really is asking me to do this and I'm going to be a follower of him, and if I don't do it, that means I go to hell, that kind of changes things, because again, eternity is what matters. If my child dies early, is God just? Will he do right by that child?
Well, but
right.
that's not the same conversation.
Well, it's part of it though, I think.
Well, but because we can get into kids having cancer and dying. That's a whole different conversation than a God saying, Chris.
Yeah, I get it.
To demonstrate, or Logan, to demonstrate your love and loyalty, I want you to go kill your child.
Sure, and I think a big part of that comes from knowing him. So, is God good? That's what it always comes down to.
Exactly. So, is that a good thing?
By my own understanding, no. But here's the problem. I'm evil. And this is why I start, by the way, all the time with man is evil. So if God really is good, anything that he says is going to be good. Anything.
Would you ask me, Chris, ask Oz, would you ask me to kill any of my kids to prove my friendship to you?
No.
So who's evil?
Well, again, that's your understanding of what's good and evil. But if an evil person is the one asking it, therefore anything that they do is going to be against God. And so this is where we go with, are you really following God or not?
I did not like you, and I did not like you.
Of course.
And I told him, actually, I used you, Oz, in a recent Christian podcast that I did. So, do you know Discerning Dad on there? I don't know. He's got like 20-something thousand followers, I think.
That's why I don't know him. I'm down with 1,000 people.
Get real. No, he's really cool though. He's a really nice guy. His name's Tim, and he had me on his podcast. And one of his things is discernment. He's like, he wants to give the time that you did and didn't use good discernment, right? And I use you as the example of the time that I feel like I cut a promo on you. And I ended up deleting the video and taking it down and saying I'm sorry and all that.
How long did it stay up for?
I don't remember.
Was that for like a day?
Probably a couple days, if I remember right. It could have been shorter.
I was like the time that you started to dress like that. I wear hoodies and hats.
I do love hoodies, man. Oh my gosh, to be honest with you, that's from my son. He wears hoodies all the time, and I was like, man, I do love hoodies. So I started getting into hoodies.
I was like, Pasta, look, he's jocking my style. You gotta have a good amount of grease with Atheist Pizza.
What's up with Calvinism?
God.
Chris is almost a Calvinist.
God has already ordained everything. It is what it is. Why are we even discussing it?
Okay, here's how I see this.
Did you hear this?
Yes.
God damn it.
And you can jump in on this too, Logan, because I think you'll probably have some stuff to say too. But what I would say
are you
is,
both Calvinists?
huh?
Are you both Calvinists?
I'm 100% Calvinist.
Yeah.
Oh, you're 100%?
Yeah, I'm Reformed theology. Yeah. Yep. Reformed
And
theology.
the camera switches straight to the Calvinist. I'm saying.
No, but it's like this, man. If I know that every day at 10 o'clock my daughter gets on her phone or something, does that mean that just because I know that's going to happen, that she's somehow doesn't have that free will or is predestined to do it? Or does that mean I just know it's going to happen? You see what I'm saying? That's a rhetorical question.
Well, absolutely, because you're not God.
Well, right, but that's just me knowing. I can say, for example, my daughter's on her phone all the time, okay? doesn't, first of all, literally mean she's on it all the time. It just means she's constantly on it.
Mhm.
But if I know at a certain time during every day she does the same thing, and I say, okay, tomorrow at this time she's going to do this, it doesn't mean she's predestined to do it. It just means I know she's going to do it, right? And so with that,
because you're talking about you're basing that on knowledge of probability. Like you're going to probability.
sure.
Where God is the author, right?
Just
He's the
as-
author and
just
the
as-
creator. So he prescribed it. Like
get that.
it's already known. So if it's already known before we even step into free will, before it's known, then certain conversations are completely a waste of air and gas because it's already done.
So is that your problem with Calvinism? Well, is the predestination side of it?
I personally don't really have an issue per se with
Yes, you do.
with Calvinism. I have a problem with whether it's Calvinism or any of the
Arminianism?
Christian, sects that try to throw free will out there like it's a thing, according to the Bible. That's my stick. It's like none of you are, in my opinion, none of you are correct. None of you are correct because there's no such thing.
If there wasn't such a thing, would that, like if God is the author of everything, would he have the right to do that?
What do you mean?
Like, if everything is predestined, if he said, let's say he's only ordained that one person is going to get saved and go to heaven out of
Okay.
all of humanity, does he have the right to do that? If he's God.
If he is real, sure, why not?
And because, here's what I mean by that, and it's not like a gotcha thing by any means, I don't want you to think that, but
Well, it's only sending one person to heaven. I don't think you're getting me.
well, here's what I mean by that. What I mean is, just the fact that he would save anybody, if we all really truly are evil, is more than enough grace to worship him forever. And the fact that he would save any of us is amazing to me, because all of us are evil and sinned against him and deserve hell.
Okay, so let's pause there because I think that will help when we go into free will.
Okay.
So, and I know that this is a common conversation. Again, with most Christians, with Calvinists, I know evil,
Yeah.
predestination. So first of all, why am I evil simply because I was born? How is it even a moral thing to do to your creation that one or two people make one bad decision and now everybody has to suffer the
Do you
consequence?
think you could have done better than Adam and Eve?
What do you mean?
They were living in a
Well,
utopia.
it took one sin, right, for the fall of all of humanity, all of the earth.
What's the sin?
Anything that goes against what God says.
God told them, do not do this.
Right.
And they did it.
specifically did it.
And they're living in the most perfect scenarios, and they still sin.
Okay, so I love that you went there, and this is, to me, and you may disagree.
Okay.
To me, this is the knockout punch. So then it was never free will; it was an ultimatum.
An ultimatum?
Ultimatum
I'm just kidding.
or a tomato? We can go with
Yeah,
tomatoes.
An ultimatum.
I don't have tomatoes on my pizza, do
Hey,
you?
that margarita pizza was good though.
Yeah.
Okay,
They're
so
delicious.
Sorry,
No
say
tomatoes.
that one more time. I didn't mean.
So with Adam and Eve in the garden, that was not free will because they didn't even know what free will was, right? They were
in
told.
a perfect scenario, a utopia, right? Everything was laid
So
out.
they-
So who? But
They still had free will, though. They could still choose whether or not they were going to honor God or not.
how?
Well, they had free will. He said, "Do not do this," and they had the option to do it or not do it.
So I don't understand.
That's not free will. So if we have kids and we say, do this or else,
Okay.
it's a choice, but it's an ultimatum. It's not free will because free will by definition is you can make a decision without the influence of an external agent, right? And so now you have influence from an external agent on that decision. That's no longer free will. We're now talking about an ultimatum: do this or else.
I guess when I say free will, I'm just, because that's very into the semantics, and I get what you're saying.
Well, no, that's if we're going to have that conversation, we still have to apply
Well, you
definitions.
can call
We
it
can't
whatever
make
you
up
want.
definitions.
That's fine. You can call it whatever you want, but you're still free to do whatever you're going to do, whether you obey God or not, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's a choice that you're going to make. Am I going to follow what God said to do or not?
Okay, so then
And it's really that
if
simple.
I'm cool with that. If we all agree that it's not free will, then we can continue that conversation, because I do agree
I
that
agree
it's an
that-
ultimatum.
I agree that you think it's not free will, yeah.
I think it's still free will.
How?
They had the free will to either do what God says, even regardless if there is an external.
No, free will means there wouldn't have been a penalty.
According to who? Who says this?
That's definition. You can look it up.
Who made that definition? What I'm
I wasn't
saying
there
is
when they did
anybody can. You're choosing what you believe free will is, according to Scripture, and that's what I base everything on. As you know, it's not a
free
secret.
will is made up by Christians. Free will is not even talked about in the Bible.
Not specifically. A lot of things aren't. As you know, rapture isn't mentioned in the Bible, but a lot of Christians believe it. All kinds of things aren't mentioned, but they're kind of encapsulated into certain things. And I have an interesting, by the way, view on this, and this is why I don't just identify as a Calvinist necessarily. I don't know what you would call me, to be honest with you, because there's things in Calvinism I don't agree with necessarily too.
Well, it's not common cause.
How about you? Is there anything within the doctrine of Calvinism you don't agree with?
I don't think so.
I don't want
Not so far as
Can
what
you-
I've studied.
Can you be a Calvinist and disagree with any Calvinist doctrine?
If that's a good question.
So there's
That's a
the,
really
the
good
doctrines of grace, or the 5 points of Calvinism, the tulip.
Yeah.
Some people say they're a 4-point Calvinist or a 3-point Calvinist. They
Yeah.
take the T, the L, limited atonement, total
Right.
depravity,
I agree with
preservation
all
of the
that.
saints.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a 4-point Calvinist, you're not a true Calvinist unless
Right.
you take all 5 points.
And then there's hyper Calvinist. It goes so deep, man.
But
However-
can I pick a different flower? Do I have to do a tulip?
So there's bacon. They have the term bacon for Calvinism.
Perfect.
I don't know what you would like that. I'm not sure what the acronyms are for that, but
Are you serious?
yes, bacon. Yeah.
I'm a Calvinist. but-
joking.
No, that's true.
Wow.
That's for real.
Wow.
So there's a
That
difference.
sounds good.
We have to understand though. There's a difference between theology and religion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Calvinist is not my religion. Calvinism is not my religion.
Right. It's just
My
what you
theology
mind.
is Calvinism, which is a study of God and the sovereignty of God.
Well,
My religion
From
is
that French fella, John Calvin.
the French fella.
Yeah.
That killed somebody.
Nice fella. Nice fella, though.
Well, he killed somebody for beheaded him, right, for heresy.
I don't know.
Tomato.
Ultimatum.
Ultimatum.
But religion is the study of how human behavior. If you want to get philosophical or sociological, whatever. I'm from Alabama, but so my theology is Calvinism. Sure. How I study God, which is it's laid out to us, and you can see that in the Bible. Total depravity, fall of Adam and Eve.
Which Bible?
ESV, English
Yeah.
Standard Version.
I like
is-
that.
No, can you be a Calvinist and choose any Bible?
Yes.
So the choice of Bible isn't mutually exclusive.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Some people go NIV or pre-1985 NIV.
Some versions are
Yeah.
leaving out whole verses and stuff.
As long as
yeah.
you don't go with the Message Bible, you're fine.
Okay, that's fine. No, that's a good thing.
Because it's all paraphrased.
Do you think Oz is an atheist because he read the wrong Bible?
No,
I don't think so. What Bible did you read?
doesn't even
The Message.
matter.
No, I'm kidding.
No, I know. It doesn't matter.
No, I was NIV. Was
How
my
long
main.
have you been a Calvinist?
2 years?
You were a Christian first, obviously.
Yes. My religion is Southern Baptist. And now I identify as Reformed Baptist.
What do you think John Calvin would have done in France if Southern Baptist movement had gotten to France?
That's a good question.
So, okay. So it kind of did happen. His opponent who stood up against John Calvin was, I can't even remember his name, but it's Arminianism. Something Arminians.
Okay.
And that's Southern Baptists are basically follow the Arminian theology.
They've
Not totally though, right?
taken it from that, right?
They have a lot of similarities.
They do. But so Calvinism is God does it from the beginning. Lazarus couldn't raise himself from the dead.
Agreed.
Arminianism says God gives you the choice, and then we can either deny it or not deny it.
Sure.
And that's by the way, what I was going to say is that's where I don't know how to put this into words because it sounds so contradictory, but I believe we do have free will while simultaneously being predestined. Because
But
again,
you understand,
But
like for myself, I won't speak
Yeah.
for any other atheists.
Yeah.
Just applying logic and reason, that is absolutely like though it's nowhere on the map. Like, how can you have free will, but it already be?
But I'm not saying
Predestined.
I'm not saying that I don't have free will to eat this pizza. That it was ordained by God for me to eat this pizza. My salvation, where I will spend eternity, is what has been predestined.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
And then when Adam and Eve sinned, that was their eternity. They were meant to live to be, I guess, immortal, if you want to say. I mean, they were given this perfect life, no disease, nothing. They sinned. That was their eternity.
If we have something if this eternity thing is real,
Yeah.
Shouldn't we want good reason that we can really understand as human beings, that our little brains can understand on why to make that decision?
Well, that's the thing. Our little brains, we're talking about an infinite being, and we're trying to look at it through the lens of our finite understanding. There's no way we're going to be able to understand it all.
So is that an error of the Creator then?
I think it comes down to the fall. Whenever humans fell, and that goes to anything, child cancer, bone cancer, things everybody loves to bring up as if it's a flaw or a defect of God, it all goes back to the fallen. It's like, I kind of look at it as, if this is a road and it stops here and God puts this stop sign up and you just hop over it, what do you expect is going to happen? So whenever we sin, we go against him and we say, nah, and just jump over it. Of course things are going to fall. Of course things bad are going to happen, because he said so. In the same way that you tell your kid, don't go play in the street. And if they go and play in the street, what can you expect that's going to happen? Something good? No. And you don't say it, by the way, because you're just trying to be mean to them. You love them and you want the best for them.
But they still have free will to go play in the street, even though you gave them an ultimatum. They still have free will to go play in the street.
So when we give our kids the ultimate tomato, and let's say the three of us together, we have whatever of our children with us, one child per person here, and we tell all three, don't go run in the middle of the road, and all three go run in the middle of the road, and none of them die, but bad shit happens, they get hurt. Do we now go and then beat them, punish them, throw them into a fiery basement for eternity?
No.
Do we do those things?
I love this question, Oz, because this is where I'm going to make some people mad. Okay, not on purpose.
Ready?
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Hold on, let me get a drink. Let me get a drink.
Hold on.
Children watching, please turn away.
Yeah, turn away right now.
This is...
Hey, this is a good opportunity. This message is brought to you by Johnny's Pizza in Cartersville. This is a meat lover's pizza, and it's a certified atheist pizza. But back over to Chris with
Mine was
some.
blessed.
Oh, his was blessed.
So it was Christian pizza.
It actually got turned into a John Calvin special, and it looks more like a euro. But anyway, back over to Chris with some information that's going to upset some atheist folks.
More than likely. And not just
And probably
atheists.
Christians.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe some.
I think I know where
Maybe
you're
some of these
going.
progressive
not
Christians.
everybody is a child of God. Now hear me out, and just hear me out. Everybody is created by God, okay? But think about it. If Jesus died for everybody, right? Then why does anybody have to go to hell? If he died for all sins, and I believe he provided the way. Please don't misunderstand me. I try to be very careful.
No,
when
I
say that.
actually, what you just said there, I agree. If Jesus was real,
Because what you said is true, and it's logical, and it makes sense. Because why on earth, if I'm God, and that really is my child, the one I'm going to give to Jesus, why am I going to throw him into hell, right? God has enemies, and Psalm 5:5, something we talked about too before you guys got here. Everybody loves to say, God loves the sinner but hates the sin.
it's not the book. It's not
False.
It's not biblical, right? It sounds good on the back of a Christian t-shirt.
Feels good.
Feels good, looks good, but it's not biblical, because Psalm 5:5 tells us that he hates all workers of iniquity, meaning
He doesn't hate the works. He hates the worker.
worker. And
The
that
person.
just means those who will not bend the knee to him, those who are not his, that he is going to give to Jesus Christ, they're against him. That's what hell is. Hell is God's perfect justice against man who has sinned against the only eternal good God.
So again, I take that back to creator error.
How is it creator error?
Well, he's the orchestrator all of this. If you believe in that God, he orchestrated all of this.
He's ordained it
He
all.
has to be accountable for it. He created it.
But he gave us free will.
That's why.
And see, it goes
it's so
back.
difficult to understand it.
But that's what I'm saying. So
Okay.
he's the creator of everything.
Uh-huh.
He created the man. He created the free will. He created the penalties that come from the free will, good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere the creator has to be responsible and accountable for the creation and the product of the creation. Just like if I start a business and good shit happens, I get credit for it.
Sure.
If I make a business and it all goes downhill and all shits all over itself,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still accountable to it.
Let me give you a scenario
Okay.
that hopefully will kind of help you see where at least I'm coming from. If Ford Motor Company, right, makes a car and they had all the safety checks, all that stuff put on, and then they sell that car to somebody that then in turn gets in a drunk driving accident, should they be held liable for what that drunk driver did? Ford Motor Company.
I don't see what you're saying.
You don't have to answer, but you see where I'm going, right?
Yeah,
They're
but-
not going to be held accountable because that person still had the chance or the choice whether or not to get in that car that is safe, but they themselves messed up.
Does Ford Motor Company operate in any of the homes?
What do you mean?
Are they all knowing, all loving? Yeah.
No, of course not.
That's what I see what you're saying, but it's not applicable. Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, because we're talking about a God that he has a foresight of eternity, right?
Correct.
So he sees all the flags along the road, you know, and that's always going to be, you know, from original sin to we can get into this in a minute, but you know, the death and resurrection of Christ to
Amen.
the thought of hell. Those are the main sticking points for me, where it's like none of this logically, if we strip away what we're taught in church and from theologians, everything that have their own little twist on it, we just read it for what it is. It logically, if we map it out, doesn't make sense.
Hey, Oz. Shout out to Chris Attlee.
Oh yeah, atheist pastor, shout out.
You can see on my drafts I have.
So they said it couldn't have been done. Two theists and a Christian. Oh, God damn it. Two theists and an atheist. Oz from the Atheist Roundtable.
Which is which?
Yes. So we've got Oz out here to take on two Christians in a heated debate. Chris Ullery's always talking about 2-on-1, 2-on-1. And he gets his way for once. No, so a quick fire round. This is actually Atheist Pizza. Quick fire round with the three of you guys. Okay, hands on the buzzers. And we're going to start out actually with, when was Genesis first written?
I don't know.
Good answer. Excellent. So far, so good.
What
you
is?
get
I don't
points
know
for
for 500.
Yes. Logan, how long have you been a Calvinist?
2 years.
Oh, excellent. And is that a correct answer?
Yes,
Okay, all right.
that's correct.
Chris Ullery.
That's
Oh,
me.
excellent. Good job, Chris.
Thanks.
Who is the best looking member of TART?
Tart? No, I gotta say Steve.
Steve. Steve.
That smile.
Murder
I
Chef
told him
Steve.
the other day.
He does. He does have some good teeth.
They said the same thing about Jeffrey Dahmer. Just
Yeah.
saying.
Yep.
Jeffrey Dahmer.
But over to Logan. This is going to be a few questions
Okay.
to Logan. So Logan,
Yes, sir.
you're from Alabama?
Alabama, born and raised.
All right, so Logan, you were an atheist at one point, right?
I would identify more as agnostic if I had to put a label on it. I knew there was something, but I didn't know if it was Buddha or Krishna or whatever it was. I didn't know what it was, but I knew there was something there.
Sure. Can you first define your what's your definition of agnostic, first of all?
The way I understand it is you believe there's a higher power, but you're not sure what it is, I guess. You acknowledge there's something there, you're just not sure what it is.
Okay. So your position a few years ago, this was like 2 years ago maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you were in a position where you thought that there was maybe some God, but you just weren't sure what God that was.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what made you come to the conclusion that the Christian God is true?
So it goes back to what Chris said earlier about experience and experiential. There's this pastor I listened to on YouTube. His name's Matt Chandler. Now, I listened to him when I was younger, and I was scrolling through YouTube, and his video popped up, and I was like, oh, I remember this guy from back in the day. And I clicked on the video, and he talked about Romans 8:38. There's no condemnation in God, and I say I had this Lazarus moment where my dead heart was brought back to life, and in Calvinism, regeneration precedes faith. So I had a regenerative heart, and then I had the faith to believe that the God of the Bible was the God that is, and so that's how I came back to the faith.
Understand. So, growing up as a young man in Alabama, you were raised as a Christian.
Yeah, correct. Southern Baptist.
Gotcha. And that's the beliefs that your parents have.
Mm-hmm.
Did you attend church?
I did every Sunday, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday. I was in church. Pretty much any time the doors were open, I was there.
Would you say at that age you genuinely thought that there was a God, or?
I think so.
Sure.
I think I was, and how can I say it? The idea of a God, I think, because the God that they preach is definitely not the God that is in the Bible, the church I went to. So I had an idea, a perception of God. I had a perception of Jesus, but it wasn't the correct one.
Sure.
So.
Now, how could you differentiate between knowing of Jesus and the perception of a God had you had not been taught by your parents?
So are you saying, would I still have the same beliefs if I wasn't raised in it? Is that what?
Somewhat. I mean, that could be an offshoot of the question, but my question would be, how could you go back and differentiate between the beliefs that you had at that time if you weren't raised by your parents teaching you those? How would you have learned of Jesus the way you did by your parents? Would there have been a different set of methods and standards that you could have learned that got you to where you are now, maybe?
No, I think my parents meant well, and they tried, because that's what they were raised in.
Sure.
So I think what they believed is, and they believed what they were teaching me was right, but it was the elders and the leaders of the church that were the ones that were teaching the wrong doctrine and the wrong Jesus. And I think what they believed, they thought was what was best for me at the time.
Sure.
So
the idea was meant well.
you're correct. Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
Do your parents understand what you believe now?
Yeah.
They do?
Well, my mom does. I don't have a relationship with my father anymore.
Okay, sorry, dude.
Oh, that's fine. But yeah, I think my mom has. I've kind of, witnessed to her and showed her that the church we were raised in, or that she raised me in, was not correct and wasn't biblical. So.
Do you think there's a difference between churches that may unknowingly be teaching incorrect doctrine and, are actually teaching it to deceive?
You said, is there a difference?
No. Do you know of any, or is there something that you could maybe share? For example, the church that you grew up in, you're saying that factually that they taught the wrong doctrine.
Right.
Do you know that they may have done it by mistake, or is this something that was done intentionally?
I think it was how they were. I don't think they had an understanding of the Bible, of the God of the Bible, and how, His love and His sovereignty. Like I say, I think they just had an idea of it, and they ran with it. Just like Chris was saying, the rapture.
Mm-hmm.
Some guy wrote the Left Behind series. It's not biblical, but so many Christians believe in it. So I think they thought they were doing what was right.
I got you. Do you think they'd be open to learn what you learned?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
I would hope so.
Why do you think there's so many people that have a difference of opinion when it comes to Christian theology?
That is a good question. I think most people find what fits their lifestyle and fits their preference. I think they find stuff that aligns with their beliefs, whether it be Reformed theology or Catholic, or I think they find what best fits them, and they can ultimately be themselves, I guess. Just like with progressive Christianity, a lot of people are going towards that because it preaches universalism. Everybody gets to heaven. They say it's okay for homosexuals and all that stuff. So it fits their lifestyle. So that's what they choose to believe.
It's fair to say that one can read into something, regardless of whether it's the Bible or any book, any literature. You can read into it, and you can find something that kind of plays into your narrative, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So
I want to rewind back to Abraham and Isaac before we
yeah,
Okay.
So I'd ask you guys, if God asked you to kill your children, would you do it?
Sure.
And then just, what was the answer again?
I don't know if I could.
I don't think I could. But
Okay,
it's-
so does that mean Abraham loved God more than you guys love God, or what does that mean?
I mean, he says he was the father of faith, so I guess so. But again, we're not in that time and that context, and we've lived different lives. All those things matter, right? It's a tough question.
It could be the same with
Yeah,
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. If you knew you're going to be thrown in a furnace, would you stand up and?
Well,
Right.
killing yourself is one thing,
Sure.
but killing your child is a whole other conversation, in my opinion.
Sure.
So in that, well, first let's go to love. So God is love. That's
He is.
what He
yes.
is. It's not a characteristic or a
Right.
personality trait. Does love require us to kill to demonstrate love?
I mean, I think it could.
And for the record, I'm not angry or mad at anybody. But
I'm
it's,
sorry. I'm not either.
It's but still even in that context, Chris, we're with Isaac still not dying, so we'll get there. Okay, he didn't die.
Mhm.
But again, now we're dealing with the abuse.
So
of
so
a
look
human.
at the rest of his life. What forms of abuse do you see that affected that? Because his
But-
life's documented, right?
Well, right, but what you're doing is that's just an easy way to skirt around the fact that there was abuse in the name of God, with
I mean,
trying
you
to
can say
demonstrate.
that.
Well, no, that's what it is.
Again, you could say that, but what evidence do you have that shows that he was physically, mentally abused and his life was never the same? What's your evidence of that biblically? Because that's what you're going off of, the Bible. So
Well,
biblically, where do you see
I mean,
that?
there's a lot of things that if we want to do it, and not, I'm not trying to turn this into a debate, but
Sure.
we could do the circular, well, the Bible.
Right.
But if you and I did that to one of our kids today,
Mhm.
and somebody called Child Protection Services, what are they going to say to us?
Oh shoot, we're going to prison.
It's abuse.
Sure.
Whether the Bible comes out and says, "Hey, Abraham abused his son," of course it's not going to say that.
And that's why I keep saying times are different. But at that time, that was not something that was so out of the ordinary that you're going to prison type of thing.
And I'm asking this because
And this
maybe
is
I'm
part-
not aware. Is there another story where God asked somebody to do that?
Not that I know of. I would have to think on that. I don't think so. Logan.
But human sacrifices was.
But human sacrifice.
It wasn't an isolated event, but the son was. But human sacrifices.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I'm the reason I go back to this one because I'm a dad, so I can directly
Sure.
relate to it.
Sure.
But that's one where the Bible God went to this single person
Mhm.
and said, "I want you to kill this human being, which is your son, the one that you love." He says.
Yeah.
And then he comes and actually, psych, don't do that. And then, essentially,
The Message Bible would say it like that.
Gotcha. but then whether you want to glaze over it or not, the what's left there in the proverbial ashes is that that's abuse to a human being. That's child abuse, and I have a problem with that. That first we asked for a death, then okay we played a prank,
because you were actually going to show that you loved me and that you're loyal to me. But now we're left with somebody that was abused. Now, whether that trauma lasted for a day or for 30 years, no, we don't know that. But the bottom line is the abuse happened. So back to my original question, that story is in its entirety. How do you, just as first men, but then as fathers, how do you ground that? How do you rationalize that in your head, and how do you deem that acceptable?
I don't know. I feel like I would contradict myself because I don't know enough about this subject to speak on it intelligently, I guess. Because you said that's your favorite book of the Bible, so obviously, or your favorite story.
Yeah.
So you've obviously done your research and thought a lot about it. And I just I don't glaze over it, but I read over it. And, I haven't thought about it as much as you have.
Because again, I got to keep reiterating this. God did the same thing, but he did not stop his hand through Christ. That is why everything in Scripture is about him. Man tries to make it about everything but him. Well, God said this and that morally does. I don't care about morality. I mean, don't get me wrong. We can have that discussion. But that's why all these little side things, it goes back to one thing, man. Are you going to trust him or not? You're going to trust in your understanding or his?
Yeah.
Well, let's just skip ahead and say Logan's belief system that he has is true. We just found out yesterday. Calvinism is the thing, right? There is no argument, in other words. If you accept that as truth, is that justified for him to get to heaven?
No.
So it's not just simply him then saying, okay, I believe in this is true.
No, because it says in the Bible that even the demons believe that God exists, Jesus exists,
Okay.
and there's not demons in heaven. So it's not
Understand.
enough just to believe.
So what's that next step that Oz would have to do? Is it like accepting him as his savior?
Correct. Yeah, acceptance, and then so once you accept Jesus, you're immediately justified in the eyes of God, and then there's a process of sanctification where God is working in you to become more holy until we meet him. So we're in the sanctification process from when we accept Jesus until we die and we meet him again. And it's all about accepting Jesus, and then there's a change. Like if you were an atheist, and then there's a change in heart, and now you're a believer, and then you repent.
Mm-hmm.
The things that you sin and you go against God, you repent of those. So simply just believing and you follow the Bible. Just simply believing isn't enough.
Sure. So it's not just the belief element of it.
No.
Now, if not for the writings in the Bible, how would you know what you just told me to be true?
I couldn't if it wasn't for the Bible.
So just to be sure I'm following you, you're going off of writings in the Bible to state what you just stated.
Correct.
Okay. Now,
Which are the words of the Bible they were ordained by God. So that's why I go off of it.
and you don't see that as a form of circular reasoning.
I don't think so.
Okay. Now, Oz, if the question I'm going to put back on your lap is if Logan's worldview was proven to be true without a shadow of a doubt, so it's true, like this is truth now. It's been proven. Why would you not adhere to it?
Well, because if we have that book, and that truly is the God-breathed text, I can't align with the actions of that God.
What would be the consequences? And feel free to chime in here. What would be the consequences if he did not adhere to it?
Hell.
So it would be something afterwards. It would be like after he leaves the earth.
After death.
Okay.
Yep.
And you'd be okay with making that decision?
Yeah, I can't. If I'm going to be true to my.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. This is free because the cake now, so sorry about that.
Thank you.
That's the last of it.
Oh, atheist beer.
Yeah, if it meant me being true to my what I value, that I value human life and doing the right thing by other humans, children, all that, yes, I would pay the price of hell to not be aligned with that character.
Now, here's where it gets a little bit convoluted here, or conflated. So, in theory, if Logan's belief system is true, and God then is the one true God, he's created, now help me out, Logan.
Okay.
He's created Austin, but he's given him free will to be allowed to make that decision. So Austin can make that decision.
Sure.
So that brings us to the Pharaoh. So is Austin hardened in his own heart, or is God killing him by sending him to, well, not killing him, torturing him for eternity?
So that's interesting you bring that up because we were talking about it. So there's there's predestination that we talked about,
Sure.
but also in the Calvinists, right? In the Calvinist theology, there's a thing, and people don't like to talk about it, or when you explain it to them, they get mad.
Is
And
God mad right now because he made it rain?
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
That's atheist rain.
you're lucky. You're lucky.
That's Christian rain.
Okay.
No, you gotta have a rainbow for that.
It's tears for Austin.
That's
God's
right.
Tears for Austin.
That's right.
There's a concept called double predestination,
Oh,
and I don't know if y'all are familiar with
That's a new one for me.
that. Okay, so predestination is God elects those that will be saved,
okay.
but on the reverse of that, He elects those that will go to hell. So you have the elect and you have the reprobates, and some people are like, God is willfully going to send those to hell. Well, if He predestines some to go to heaven, there's going to be those that don't accept Him, and if He's already ordained this and He's sovereign, there'll be those that go to hell. And I can't remember where it is about the clay doesn't speak to the potter. I can't think of the book right off the top of my head, but there's this talks about the potter will make clay for good, and the potter will make clay for evil. The clay doesn't say to the potter, "Why have you made me this way?" In a short, I don't know it right off the top of my head. But if I believe in predestination, that God elects those to go to heaven, I believe that He elects those to go to hell.
You gonna burn, Austin? Sorry, bud. What kind of conversations do you like to have with either your fellow theists, Christians, or do you like to engage with agnostics or atheists?
I don't get the opportunity a lot. I've interacted with Muslims and Mormons more than atheists. So it's a real different experience, and I enjoyed it.
He told me in the bathroom that he thought that he was rambling on a little bit.
Yeah, I felt like I was rambling.
I told him he did good.
So Logan, do you know what atheism is?
Yes, now I do.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have that stigma of Marilyn Manson type of figures, but it was a cool experience, and really enjoyed speaking with you guys.
Likewise, my friend. Well,
Yeah.
Logan, very nice to meet you. I hope you have a wonderful trip back.
Awesome.